The case for desecrating art. No, I'm not saying criminal vandalism. Just because something should be destroyed doesn't mean you should go out of your way to do so illegally, because that's not your property and you could be jailed for damaging it. But if you do have the opportunity to destroy something legally, I would say yes, do go out and destroy some art because art is not sacred. Art is beautiful, art is cool, art showcases human ingenuity and excellence, but I still think that we treat it with too much reverence. At the end of the day, art cannot save you. I don't even really think it can elevate your soul, which is the language that some people will use for it. Art is, in a lot of cases, just an arrangement of shapes, and maybe with some interpretive contextual concepts kind of like presented to you with it. These concepts can be more tricky and invisible, and some of them can be worth meditating on, but they're just as likely to be boring garbage in our society. So why not just destroy these things? Are these certified artistic voices so valuable that they must be honored in perpetuity? I would argue often no. I think we need to find ways to remove the power of current institutions to certify, to declare that this art is valuable, and to expose how much they've already become inadequate for the task of certification. I'm pro art generally. I like arrangement. I like surfaces, and I like things being put together in a beautiful way. I even like abstract conceptual work. Beauty is great. I love beautiful art. Sometimes I even like ugly art, and that could be really tasty too in the right context. And all of that being said, I just don't think that it's sacred and that we need to treat art like holy relics. Now, if a work of art gets destroyed, it's not a big deal. Maybe if they had some kind of profound historical value that encapsulates a certain way of life, or like this method of production, or like kind of technique that maybe later becomes technologically outmoded and then is like no longer existent. And then that's historically valuable, and then it would be sad if that artifact got destroyed. But all sorts of things like that with historical value are kind of just getting eroded all the time. They fade away and they get lost and they get destroyed. I'm more susceptible to the argument that we should treat historical artifacts with reverence, but even then you've got to have some limits on that as well. Not everything can be equally preserved. Not everything can be equally historical and judged as worthy of being recorded for history. In fact, many of the things around us, I would say, are worth actively demolishing because they're so ugly. I have some archival related hobbies, and so I'd hate to see things erased. I like it when archives are full of accurate and helpful information that allow you to really explore a certain topic or history of a given subject with thoroughness, and see all of the relevant works within that. But I think many contemporary works of art are so glossy and ahistorical, and they just sort of float through the institutionalized certification culture that we have now, that seizing and destroying them could only add to their historical value. So you'd really be doing the contemporary artist a favor, I think, given the current environment of publicly destroying whatever it is that they've created. Now, beautiful historic pieces of art, I would preserve them if I had the chance, but honestly, I wouldn't mind too much if someone shredded a Van Gogh or sent a Da Vinci up in flames. I mean, we know what they looked like, and having the physical objects on display is nice, and it makes sense why they're so valuable. They are historic, they are beautiful. I'm not denying that, but Still, I just don't think that they should inspire this kind of worship in us, this deep need to protect. It's an image, right? Images are not worthy of that level of devotion. They do have cultural value. They just don't have transcendent value, and I think we just affix too much transcendent value, or in our society we don't have a lot of channels that we see as appropriate for viewing things as transcendently valuable. So we say, well, human expression and sort of these accomplishments in unique human expression, those are where we'll have the most reverence for a thing. And I just disagree with that ethos, and so I think a valuable way of demonstrating that is just destroying what is worthy of destruction. Um, Often, I think recently, as opposed to, in sort of direct opposite of appealing to transcend value, a lot of art and culture is just a way for insiders to flex on one another. It really has nothing to do with a true aristocratic high culture, which of course has always involved insiders flexing on each other. I don't deny that. But in such a way that involves appeals and engagement with transcendental universal virtue, and with things beyond, you know, beyond just their immediate cultural environment, and things of more fertile traditions, of more fertile conceptual ground than just the kind of sterile, abstracted landscape that we have now of kind of battles between careerist nihilists. Um, Museums are the closest thing our culture has to temples, where you kind of come into this big marble building with tall ceilings and cool air, and it's got the columns and the skylights. And you look at these massive pieces of statuary and art, and you're supposed to go, wow, humanity. Look at what we can accomplish. Look at this thing that has eternal value. And I do enjoy museums, and they're great. They are beautiful, and they have beautiful things within them. So I think it would be cool to be a curator or something like that. But trying to treat high culture like it's sacred is totally missing the mark. I think you lose sight of what actually is sacred, and then you lose sight of the what's actually valuable in the culture as well, just of the moment, of the just sort of ephemeral joy of being in the world. When you're kind of conflating those things, there's no spiritual improvement that comes from art. I don't think, in literature as well, and I think people try to freight art and literature in these vessels of beauty as if they're somehow deepening our soul in some way. And I don't think that's necessarily true. Potentially a wise, humble person encountering anything can deepen their soul from that experience. But I don't think that art has like a special role to play within our general experience of human life, as if this was somehow a special spiritual mode of communication, any more than other forms of communication can also be spiritual. So I don't want to say that art never has any spiritual value. That would be too extreme. But I don't think that art has special spiritual value any more than having a really thoughtful conversation with someone can, in a specific instance, have spiritual value, or sharing a meal with someone at just the right time can have this special significance to it. I don't see art as and the institutions of art as having a license on meaningfulness, or truly being able to live up to the call of being a bureaucracy of meaning and the transmission of significance. Now, if any rich patrons are willing to fund me, please donate money, or directly donate me a piece of ugly contemporary art worth destroying, and I'll destroy it. I'd love to film myself destroying it. and that would be a troll in one sense. It would get people riled up, and that's always fun. But I don't think it's worth destroying art and culture just for a cheap reaction. What really makes it worth destroying is just challenging that deeply misplaced sense of reverence, of people giving reverence to things just because they've been told that this is the category of things that they should give reverence to. And instead, they need to learn that art isn't sacred, especially today, where most of these things are just financial instruments used by money launderers. If anything is non-sacred, it's that. Um, but these works only get their power from the reverence that you give them because they've been certified as art by these credentialed institutions. So if we can just teach people to stop revering what is not worthy of reverence, then maybe that can help correct some of these excesses in the market and the economy of art. That's a theory. I'm sure there's people who've put a lot more thought into that of what ought to be done. And maybe they've even made some works of art exploring those ideas. You can make the case that a work of art reveals a unique way of seeing the world, and that if we eliminate that artifact, then we're losing access to an entire imaginative realm that we might never be able to rediscover apart from what that particular artist did at that specific point. And I agree. I think that's possible. But my counter to that is this. One, some imaginative realms should be sealed away for good. It's not a problem if we lose access to an imaginative realm, per se. Two, you experience that every day when you wake up and go to sleep. Your imaginative perception is constantly shifting. You're forgetting your dreams all the time, and you experience that same loss whenever that loss of access to an imaginative vista whenever you choose not to talk to somebody and get their perspective on something. Whenever someone in your neighborhood dies, you have lost access to an imaginative realm. So that's just the course of life, and you don't want to be actively going around sealing those things off unless somebody deserves it. Some people maybe deserve to be silenced. Now, who gets to decide that? That's a good question. I think that we can generally express the sentiment of, well, I don't like the people who are in charge now, and I don't like the decisions that they're making. I think they need to be corrected about this, and this. Well, to their credit, they are at least doing things, and they at least have authority and power, even if I disagree with it. I'll admit that they matter more than I do, but I think it's a worthy goal to try and long-term aim for influence and the desire to see cultural influence shift from people who are doing just bad things with their positions in society, and to see them replaced with other people with a totally different ethical vision and different imaginative ethos to them, different traditions. One of my longtime dreams is to launch a bonfire of the vanities like Savonarola did in Renaissance times. Getting everybody to bring out their vanities and their books and pieces of art and wasteful things and decadent things, and just set it all on fire in a big display of a big conflagration. I might never have the funds to be able to do something like that in a legal and peaceful way, and I think doing so in a criminal or violent way would defeat the purpose for me, because what I actually believe in is worthy of reverence, is other people. Even when they're too dumb or too rich or have bad taste, or even if I envy them because of the position that they have in the art world or something like that I think is ill-gotten. Whatever their problem, I think there's at least a bare minimum of care that you should give to other people, and that means to a certain degree not messing with their stuff, especially in a way that's illegal or aggressive. So I don't agree with going into these museums and spray painting the pieces of art or damaging them somehow. The people are potentially much more interesting and important than the art on the walls. It's just a sick society when we pay more reverence to financial instruments than we do to people, just because we're sort of trapped in this logic of, oh yeah, culture is important and human expression is really sacred. So we need these museums to help us see what is significant and beautiful, and maybe that is valuable to a point, but at a certain point it just becomes so corrupt and decadent that if I had the option to legally and peacefully, I would just burn it all down, burn it to the ground. So yeah, I don't mean all of that in kind of like pious activistic way where some people have the sentiment of, oh, we've just got to burn everything down and then like live in a big commune with a bunch of homeless addicts just to show that we really care about humanity. I just mean that the people around you, whether they're homeless or not, are quiet works of art in their own way. And some of them might be more classical, artistic beauties, and some of them might be more abstract, but either way, they're worthy of regard. Why is this person the way that they are, and what made them this way? Was it their own decisions, or was it other people's decisions? They're more worthy of regard than contemporary financial instruments. So even if they seem like boring people, even if they seem at first glance like they have nothing to offer you or your mission in life, I really believe this. Still trying to wrap my head around how to live out that sentiment in a thorough way, but deep down, I just really think that's true. Um, the symbolic destruction of cultural artifacts means something different in an internet age where a lot of information can be immediately replicated infinitely. So burning, I think, is just sort of a pointless, hollow gesture. I'd love to burn thousands of volumes of this generation's young adult fiction because I think it is slop. But there's no way to burn up the entire internet. You can't burn TikTok. At least I can't. Maybe some official there does have the capacity to do so, or someone with an EMP device or something like that. Personally, I think it would be a cultural improvement if a lot of pop culture were just erased and deleted from the historical record. But within our limits, it can't be. There's just too much of it, and we can't free ourselves from it, even if we want to be free. We could be stuck with this bad fantasy slop and Sonic the Hedgehog memes forever. That's just our culture, and until strong enough defenses or EMP devices are deployed, that will just continue to be our culture. The best we can do with that is just ignore them, give them as little mental space as possible, perhaps occasionally burn them in effigy if the opportunity avails itself. But even then, you're just sort of perpetuating the idea. But we are at least able, in theory, to take artifacts that have been declared as sacred because of their lack of mass production, because of their unique kind of material reality, and we can destroy those if we should, if they're worthy of destruction. And I think some pieces of contemporary art are. I think they do meet that bar to be just destroyed, and so they're potentially easier to eradicate than what would be ideal in the long run of just eradicating some of these horrifying memes and glitches of language that are just becoming permanently embedded in our mass cultural consciousness. We can at least start with the small particular things first. I think your worldview is a little hollow if you want to at least preserve or at least tolerate all cultural artifacts and symbols indefinitely. I think if you don't have a gut instinct of like, yeah, some of this should be destroyed, then I don't really trust your opinions. We only have a limited amount of archival space for material things, and for the sake of our sanity, we should limit the amount of mental space that we give to cultural, cultural artifacts and pop cultural data. I wish I could delete so many deep, if my brain was a book, you could just open it up. You could find years of pages worth of just Nickelodeon garbage, fan wiki garbage, deviant art. Actually, some of that the original character art, and I have some nostalgia for that. Don't delete that. I want that. I want to keep some of that. Original character tournaments. The fan art, that was all garbage though. Pixel webcomics from the 2000s. Years of my mental development devoted to those things. And I wish that I'd been spared. I wish that my brain was spared of the burden of having those things. But there's really no way of getting around it in the internet age. So we just have to shoulder that for now. But we can, at least to make up for our psychic wounds there, we can take it out in vengeance on, legally and peacefully, on the high end of the spectrum. And I think these things are maybe more connected than we want to admit. If maybe this is too much of a fantasy of mine, but if one end of the system could be destroyed, if the high end centers of art and credentialization and financial manipulation, if that could be totally revolutionized and overthrown, what sort of changes would we see in the organism at the popular mimetic fan culture level? Would they are these worlds as separate as we think they are? I don't know. That's just me spitballing. Where was I? We only have a limited amount of space and time in our lives. We have to choose what is worthy of passing down culturally, and I think that our kind of laissez-faire attitude towards culture has just allowed so many ugly things to sprout like cancer, whether in the visual arts or narratively at the high conceptual level or at the popular level. And so I just wish a lot of it could be destroyed. I don't want to come across as advocating for an uglier world. I think our society is fairly ugly right now and needs more beauty. I think we need more trees and stone buildings and brick buildings and cloisters and walled gardens. And we may be too poor to afford such things. And ironically, you can't get a culture of beauty by turning everything into a financial instrument. In weird ways, financializing your economy makes everything poorer. I hope that's pretty clear by now. If you do have the opportunity to destroy some contemporary art with full legality and peacefulness, I encourage you to do so. Please film it and send it to me. I dream of hundreds of bonfires spreading across the United States, of a new generation rising up, liberated from the idea that art is somehow sacred. Thank you.